The Club Championship Show on OTB Sports in partnership with AIB, proud sponsors of the Football, Hurling and Camogie All-Ireland Club Championships. Hashtag the toughest.
A very happy new year and welcome along to our first episode of 2022. It is the Club Championship here on OTB Sports, brought to you by AIB GAA. We're looking forward to a very busy weekend. The 2020 All-Ireland Camogie Championships will finally come to a close, much delayed, and there's also provincial silverware up for grabs in Connacht, Munster and Leinster. We've got football deciders in Connacht and in Leinster, and we've got the hurling final this Sunday in Munster as well. We're going to be talking to Paudie O'Brien of Kilmallock in a moment, and Tommy Rooney is along with me. Principally because we're back focusing on the football this week, Tommy, to have a look forward to those Leinster and Connacht finals this weekend. And a classic 2022 move. I think Tommy is on mute at the moment.
How did I manage that?
Welcome along.
That's a 2021 move.
New year, different resolution. Tommy Rooney has still got himself muted. Go on, Tommy. You were going to give us some glorious insights into the fact that we're looking forward to a football provincial final weekend here.
Well, I was just going to say how happy I was to be back talking football, and naturally enough I muted myself there. So yeah, welcome back to yourself as well. It's great to be back. The club weekend this weekend is going to be brilliant. The county season is around the corner, but the next 6 weeks of club action is going to be top class as we get it going. There's a bit of excitement earlier in the week with that game in the Connacht Airdome. The Connacht final this weekend between Knockmore and Pearses is going to be class. It's going to be on TG Carr this Sunday. It's going to be well worth watching. And we'll be talking about that game. We'll be talking about the Kilmallock Crooks and Naas game as well. So I'm looking forward to talking about the football after we get into hurling as well.
Yeah, it's going to be great. We're going to kick off with the hurling because Porky Queeve this Sunday afternoon. We've got Kilmallock of Limerick going up against Ballygunner of Waterford. 3:30. It's going to be a cracker, this one. Kilmallock are hoping to win the Munster title for the first time since 2014. While Ballygunner have been the winners a couple of years ago, but nearly many times, including losing the 2019 decider to Borrisoleigh. But they've been kind of one of the elite standard teams in Munster since 2015. So it's an intriguing final. Both teams were very impressive in their run to the decider, including that dismantling performance by Kilmallock against Middleton in the semi-finals. Delighted to say that Paudie O'Brien of Kilmallock is with us. Paudie, how are you getting on?
Hey lads, thanks for having me.
What a week this is for you. I'm guessing when you booked your wedding for this week, you weren't thinking you were going to be in an AIB All-Ireland Club semi-final.
No, I didn't. that would have been foolish of me. I would have been my first given out to. But well, this is actually our second run at it. We were supposed to get married last January, but obviously, current environment put a halt to that. But look, we are where we are. It's a great weekend. Look, it's a busy one, and it can be obviously quite stressful, but look, it's two massive occasions that we're usually looking forward to.
Did your fiancé have any concerns knowing that there was a Munster final to be played this weekend and that the wedding was coming around? Because I'm presuming training has been pretty hard either side of Christmas, and there's always that risk the photos could be ruined for this weekend.
Yeah, well, knowing my face, my photos are ruined a long time ago. But look at at the end of the day, we kind of had this, I suppose. It was even before the Middleton match. We knew the Munster final fixture was there. We didn't even look at it because obviously we had a game to win there. But it was always looming and it was always there. But look, we've she's very laid back. I'm very laid back. We take it in our stride as best we possibly can. There's nothing in my head now. Only getting everything ready for Friday, getting over the line there, and look, come Saturday evening after we have a bit to eat and stuff, we look forward to Sunday and get ready for that,
Is it a good or a bad distraction to have on a week like this? Because, it could be nervy. You're getting ready to play Ballygunner in a massive match on Sunday. The wedding takes the focus and probably takes all the attention away from the match until at least after Friday. And then you guys at Graham Mulcahy's wedding just after the New Year as well. So it's been wedding season in Kilmallock over the last while.
Yeah, it has. And just look, maybe it's a sign of the year. We're all at that kind of age. Philip O'Callaghan, our captain, got married maybe about 3 weeks ago as well. But I always like the distractions, to be honest. I don't. I mean, I have a busy job and I have 2 young kids as well, so I'm always distracted, regardless of wedding or no wedding. So, I'm not kind of fella to sit down and think about games for the whole week leading up to them. I suppose a bit longer around the block now for that. I might have done that in my earlier years, but now I'm just training as hard as I can, enjoy the lead up to the matches, and what will be.
Yeah, and trying to make a bit of hay here with Kilmallock, because I was reading you had said before that it was not quite devastating, but you'll always look back on the fact that when John Kiley came in, you get dropped off the Limerick panel. It ushers in this golden period in inter-county that the lads have had over the last 4 years or so. I'm sure now that your focus is entirely on Kilmallock, that you want to win as many medals as possible with your club.
Yeah, exactly. Even suppose after we won the county championship, I was lucky enough to grow up in Kilmallock at a kind of a golden age where we were winning stuff, whether it was minor, 21, senior, and we were knocking about, every year. And even my time at Limerick was, we won a lot more matches than we lost, let me put it that way. So then when you I suppose you leave that side of it, you start playing with the club and you're not successful for a couple of years, it can be hard, and it can be a hard one to take. So even when we won the county this year, it was just some feeling, because it was a feeling that I hadn't had it in a long time, to be there and to be able to have my family with me, have my friends and all that. It's just huge. But look, I suppose I don't get caught up in that kind of stuff, because at the end of the day, we have a massive battle on Sunday. We're under no illusions. The task that we have, if we win it, it'll be absolutely great, and if we lose it, so be it. We'll move on.
Can I just take you back to the performance in that semi-final against Middleton? To keep them quiet for 17 minutes without a score, to have gone on that run to build up the 9-point lead within the first half, and even to extend that out to 10 or 11 points early in the second half, you must have been really happy with the display on the day.
Yeah, absolutely. It was very mature, I suppose, is the word that I put on it. We just got off the blocks early, got a foothold in the game, kind of never let up. And I suppose all we've been talking about the last couple of weeks, there are 10 or 15 minutes after half time where we were quite poor. We probably sat back a bit and just kind of left things happen and tried to leave the game roll on without just keep going at it and keep bringing the initiative to Middleton, which we did in the first half. So, I mean, we're going to have to be good, more than good, for 60 minutes on Sunday, otherwise it just won't be good enough. But look, it's just great to see some more younger lads just standing up, even in big days, because that would have been the biggest game for some of our lads that they ever would have played, and for just to see them stand up and take it in their stride and enjoy it was great, because that's a seriously good Middleton team as well, and I don't buy it for 1 second that they're not a good team. We took them serious and prepared really hard for it, so we were delighted with that result.
There's no shortage of video if you want to do assessments on Ballygunner ahead of the game this weekend. I thought they were very impressive in the two games that they played so far. So efficient with every chance they had against Ballyer on the first day, and then going up against a very good Lockmore Castleiney team in the semi-final and rucking it out last time out just before Christmas. I mean, it's almost redundant to say it's a serious team that you're coming up against here. Yeah,
exactly. And I suppose sometimes in these occasions it'd be very cliche of me just to go on about the opposition team and how good they are, but they are that good, and we're under no illusions to that. They're a team we'd have a fair admiration for, because to go and win all these counties in Waterford is just some going, and I don't buy into the fact that it's a weaker championship than other places. That's just not true. Their county team have showed that the last couple of years, so they're an unbelievable side. They just look like a little mini county team in the way that they're set up. They look like they're all on the same wavelength. They seem to be very professional in what they do. But we're also delighted that we get to test ourselves against them. If you were to go on and win this Sunday, it would be special to beat a team like them to go on that journey. So, we're really looking forward to the task ahead. That's what we're kind of relishing,
Yeah, because you can give us an insight into what it means for the club, because you were around at the start of the last decade where there was a couple of Limerick titles won and a Munster title was won along the way too. What would it mean for Kilmallock to get back to the top of the mountain in Munster again this weekend?
Sure, look, this one would be huge, really, because in 2014 we were, we won 10, won 12 to 12, so we were playing Munster club campaigns for maybe 2 out of the 4 years, whatever way you look at it. So, but this we had a mini barn spell, and there's absolutely no one, including myself, that would have told you that we'd be in this position to start the year, and I'm just lying here if I told you any different. So this is this is a real bonus for us. So it would be, words couldn't describe it. It would be absolutely huge, because these occasions don't come around that often. We're well aware of that. We're also, I suppose, we have a proud history in this competition as well. We've never lost a Munster club final, so we want to try and keep that record straight if we can on Sunday. But we'll give it everything, take it as it comes,
And when it comes to that record, potentially a fifth title here, and you could join Na Piarsaigh at the top of the Roll of Honour with Limerick clubs within Munster. I know you're not motivated by catching up with your rivals, but it'd be nice to be the joint most successful team from the county.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, it's just a fairly staggering statistic on the Piarsaigh when you think about it and think about where they've come as a club. They probably only won their first county championship 2010. It's just, I don't know, has any other club in any grade done that in that short period of time? It's astonishing, really. So as much as they are rivals, you can't but have unbelievable admiration for them, because that's a fair statistic. So look, it would be lovely. It would be lovely to do that. We obviously lost the club final in 14, and we would have been the first club to win it, and they went on and won it in 15. So they're like our little, they're just coming up behind us, people us in these things. But no, look, they're a serious outfit, and we'd have a fairly good relationship with all them lads as well. But that's not even in our head. We just like to keep our own little record of not losing a Munster club from our own town. That'd be a nice little one to keep on after Sunday, you know.
Sorry, Tommy, I could have crossed you there. Come on in.
Not at all. Paudie, how you doing? Tommy here. You mentioned earlier there and we know the weddings that are happening at the minute with the group, and you mentioned a wee barren spell there where I suppose Napirshy and Patrick's Well took over in Limerick. What's the profile of the Kilmallock team like at the minute? Is it many of the same boys around since 2014 when you won that last title?
Yeah, it's kind of a funny profile, Tommy, in the sense it's kind of like there's three groups. There's the old lads. There'll be myself, Gavin, Graham, Barry Hennessy, Philip. Now, when I say old, like we're not that old, but anyone from about 30 to 33. Then you have, I suppose, a middle-aged group of like Micheál Hoolan, Oisin O'Reilly, Dan Joy. These lads, they're probably between 25 and 28, Aaron Costello, those lads. And then you have kind of a really younger kind of cohort who are kind of David Wolfe, Liam English, and these fellas. So there's a great mix between everyone. Like we all do get on very well. I mean, I would have coached the last under 21 county 4 years ago, and a lot of them lads are still playing, and that's just a great buzz. Like that's what it's all about, really, isn't it? It's just to be able to build these relationships with these lads, and I suppose to be able to coach them a couple of years ago and watch them develop on. And they've taken plenty of knocks now along the way the last couple of years, you know, and they've had plenty of questions asked of them, and they have come up absolute trumps. Regardless of what happens Sunday, they've been outstanding.
Is coaching something you want to do in the future, Paudie? Given like you were still in your 20s when you got involved with that under 20 Limerick team. Yeah,
well, definitely the club. I do. Like I just love giving back to the club as much as I can, because it means a massive amount to me, the place. I was coaching Limerick under 21s last year, 2 years ago. I really enjoyed that, but look, I'm extremely busy. I have a busy enough job. I have a young family. I'm trying to grind out as much as I possibly can out of myself for the last couple of years that I can, and I'm really enjoying that. Really enjoying training myself. Really enjoying whatever bit of time that I have to myself to be able to keep playing. So at the moment, look, it probably will be something in time, but it's not something that I could say, oh yeah, I'm definitely going into that. I'm definitely not going to put out a pitch for myself. I've plenty to be doing for the next couple of years. I've busy times at the moment, you know.
Just on the final note, in terms of enjoying things and enjoying this run with Kilmallock, we were talking to Ursula Jacob just before Christmas, and at 36 she became an All-Ireland club champion again, and she was saying how that meant a lot more than maybe some of the ones that she won even at Intercounty when she was in her 20s, because you appreciate that the road doesn't have a whole lot left on it. Like, you've had a few injuries in recent years too, like to be injury free and to be going on a good run with your club, I'm guessing you're just relishing and enjoying this journey that the club are on at the moment.
100%. I couldn't agree any more with that. I think that's just probably people get mature as they go on with age. I suppose people start to realise that I did anyway when I was in my 20s with Limerick. It was probably too much to be all and end all. It was always about, you know, the next game, or trying to win a Munster, or trying to win Limerick, and you know, or trying to win an Ireland. That can kind of restrict you a bit, and I suppose you can, you know, not enjoy it as much as you should, instead of just being present in the moment and taking these games as they come. And now, look, hurling is hurling. It's a hobby and it's a pastime. As much as I train as hard as I do now as I did before, but I still realise that, you know, I have to get up and I have to go to work, and you know what I mean, I have to make sure my family are okay. I have to make sure that all the other boxes are ticked. So this just becomes something you appreciate more, and even the social aspect of going training now is what I've enjoyed more. The crack in the dressing room before and after, we'd have right crack inside us. So like that's what it's all about, really. It's more important to me now than anything else, you know.
Well, look, a huge 3 days coming up for you. The best of luck with the wedding on Friday, and then with the what should be a mouth-watering Munster final against Ballygunner on Sunday afternoon.
Thanks, Les. Thanks for having me.
Cheers, Paudie. Best of luck.
Let's have a look at the football then, Tom, because it's a busy weekend, as you mentioned at the outset. That Munster final 3:30 at the Park on Sunday is going to be must watch if you can get along to it, or it's on TG Carr on the afternoon. We also have got the Connacht football final on TG Carr at 1:30 on Sunday. It is going to pit Knockmore in the final for the first time since the mid-90s up against Porrick Pierces, who are the beaten finalists from 2019, and that game's in Ballina at 1:30. You were at Porrick Pierces and Montbellew just a few weeks ago before Christmas for the semi-final. Knockmore, their comeback win against Tourlestrane. on the face of it, this is a very difficult game to call, and the bookmakers have called this right down the middle. I think Knockmore evens and Pádraig Pearses are just slightly outside evens going into the game. So everyone seems to think this is going to be a pretty close game, Tommy.
It is going to be a really close game, Will. Like, I think the way that Pádraig Pearse is set up as well, they're very difficult to break down. I know Knockmore, they play quite a direct style in Mayo, and they got a bit of joy out of that over the last couple of years. But Pearses aren't going to be easy to break down, and they showed it against Mount Bellew, Moylock. They showed it. In the last couple of weeks, Pearses have actually gone on and won the league title in Roscommon, the Bet Roscommon Gales, and they've had a bit of form. They lost under 20s final to Bridges too, so they've been kind of keeping the momentum rolling a little bit, you could say, over the last couple of weeks. In terms of how close the game is going to be, like, it is absolutely going down to the wire. It's going to be a proper battle. I found that Mount Bellew game, even though it was low scoring, to be enthralling. It was, and I know there was the madness and the drama and the shocking scenes really at the end with the referee that are being dealt with, but that game itself, it was just a proper December battle of football. Maybe not the speed that you might get if this game was being played in the Airdome, in the Connacht Airdome, the new Airdome, but it's going to be a tough game. It's going to be in Ballina, up the road from Knockmore. And can't blame the bookies for calling it that close. I wouldn't be far off calling this one, being a draw going to extra time,
Yeah, look, I don't mind low scoring games, by the way, this time of year, because all the conversation coming out of the Airdome on Tuesday night was the fact that if this had been in a ground outside, it would have probably been, I think Andy Moore would say 9 points to 7 or something like that in most FTV Connacht League games. I don't mind a game where defences do a good job, where maybe the ground is a little bit attritional and it's difficult to get scores, and that game can be just as dramatic as a match that finishes at 121 to 117.
Oh, 100%. It's nearly about the quality that you're able to see, like the quality of the scores in Dr. Hyde Park the last day. I was asking Conor Daly about it afterwards. Is there a sweet spot in the Hyde where the wind catches the ball and brings it down towards the graveyard end? Because there were 6 scores in about a 20-minute spell from both sides in the same right-hand side of the pitch, in the same patch of grass. Gorgeous scores, brilliant scores, as good as you'd see in any game. So, I don't know. I think it's going to be a low-scoring affair, Knockmore and Pearses. I think Mount Bellew's goal early in that game, if you'd seen it, it was a direct ball, a long ball in from the wing back, and Barry McHugh bet the keeper to it and got a flick onto it. Knockmore probably target Pearses in that regard. They probably will go for it in that regard. Pearses are incredibly strong in their middle third. They have the 4 Daly brothers, but the 3 of them, Ronan, Connor and Niall with inter-county senior experience, that are going to be kind of running the show there for them in around midfield. And that is their key area. And we know Knockmore have the wily Kevin McLaughlin. I believe Darren McHale is still out, that he isn't back yet from it. I think he's been suffering from plantar fasciitis and a couple of other injuries over the last little while. He was a massive player for Knockmore. His form at club level got him into the Mayo setup, and got him starting with Mayo this year. He scored a brilliant goal, I think, in the county final against Ballintubber last year, or could have been the semi-final to knock them out. He's a massive loss to club side. So Knockmore without McHale probably levels it up a little bit more. If the Mayo champions were favourites going in, it's obviously evened out a little bit more since then.
Well, we'll hear more from Kevin McLaughlin on Off the Ball tonight. He's going to be joining Nathan Murphy after 8 o'clock in the show, so we can look forward to that interview later. Knockmore, Tommy, on their side, qualified for the final. What feels like a long time ago because the way that the fixtures have been spread out, but they had to come from behind against the Torla Strand team, who led going into the final quarter after the water break by a couple of points, but in the end Knockmore were able to come out in top 8. It was 10 points to 8 was the full-time score, so they finished that game pretty strongly, scoring 4 points late on. Yeah,
and the county final against Ryan O'Donoghue's club, and it's just at Belmullet, was tight enough as well for quite a bit. I don't think it was a great game that day, and Jerome Henry actually was referee that day as well, and when you typed in Jerome Henry's name after the Mount Bellew game, there's quite a few people giving off about his performance that day in the Connacht final as well. So whatever about was going on those couple of weeks. But yeah, Knockmore have kind of just been trucking along really. But like, if you win a county title, it doesn't really matter how you win the next couple of games. Like we looked at Mount Bellew's form going in. They'd beaten Corfin, knocked out the standard setters in club football over the last couple of years, and then they went on to Sean McDermott at Park, and the Leitrim champions very nearly bet them that day. They were beaten them by a couple of points in the second half, and I think Michael Daly switched it on the second half, and then you see Pearses come along and beat Mount Bellew. So it's very hard to read form lines at the minute, especially in the Connacht Club Championship. It's all been very tight, and as we said, this is going to be a low scoring game, but it's going to be a bit of quality, and it's going to go down to the wire.
Ooh, who are you tipping?
I knew you were going to ask me for predictions here. Am I allowed to call 2 draws?
Yeah,
because I think that's where the value is if you're going to be back in Antrim this weekend, because I know when we get the Kilmallock Crokes here now, they're heavy favourites against Naas. But I'm not sure Kilmallock Crokes have shown us why they should be such heavy favourites against a team like Naas, who have defied all the odds and come through so many challenges so far this year. So I think if I was to do anything this weekend, and not that I'm advocating it, but I'd be looking at two little draws there, you know.
Tommy, I'm more than happy if your prediction is the end of 60 minutes, these two games are going to be level and we get a bit of extra time along the way and all the drama. Because we saw that in the Leinster Football Championship, and Naas are into their first final. What a magic story it's been for them. We spoke about them a few weeks ago, where the management steps away midstream in their season, and some of their experienced players are now running the show both on the pitch and from the sideline. And it was one of the most experienced players in O'Callaghan who kicked the point when they needed to bring it back to extra time against Kilmallock. I would say the Wexford champions are still looking back and wondering how they didn't beat Naas and get to a first Leinster final themselves. But Naas showed that little bit extra then in extra time to qualify for the final. They've had a great run. They've been really free scoring going into this final. And the potential equaliser going into this game at Croke Park at 5 o'clock on Saturday evening is that we think Paul Mannion's not going to be able to play.
Yeah. The news coming out of Kilmallock Crokes is that Paul Mannion hasn't trained since their semi-final win against Port Arlington. What a loss Paul Mannion is to Kilmallock Crokes. We're talking about one of the biggest clubs in the country. They're are they chasing their 5th All-Ireland title ever? I know they haven't won since 2010, but Kilmallock Crokes are behemoths when it comes to club football. And Paul Mannion is their superstar. He's we all know that he could be doing it for Dublin right now if circumstances were different. We all know that he would be one of the top forwards in the inter-county game at the minute. So where that leaves him in terms of club football, he's obviously a leader for Kilmallock Crokes. He's obviously their clutch forward, their go-to man. He pulls the strings. He takes the attention off the rest of the forwards, you could say. So if Paul Mannion isn't ready to go 100%, it's going to be a leveler, as we mentioned earlier on with the Pearces, with Doc Mormis and Darren McHale. At club level, when you're missing a player like that, it's such a loss. Maybe Mannion can give something. We don't know how bad this injury is. There's been very little said. We've been told he hasn't trained since. Robbie Brennan was out and said he hasn't trained since that game.
Robbie Brennan did say that it wasn't a recurrence of a cruciate ligament injury, so therefore it's not ligament damage, and maybe it's a case of they've been managing a knock to his knee since that game the week before Christmas. Yeah. Maybe it's a case of you don't train for 10 days. You know that Paul Mannion is going to be, fit and firing anyway, given his level of fitness. And then you either bring him in at a point during the game or you start him. Because, in that Port Arlington game, he was very well marshalled by Robbie Piggott in the first half of the game. But when Mannion got going in the second half, he was crucially important to Kilmallock Crokes winning that game.
Oh, 100%. And Mannion brings so much to the table when it comes to his composure and his experience on the ball and everything that he brings. Robbie Piggott did a brilliant job on him that day. But in that second half, I think, did Mannion score a beauty from the left sideline, or did he set up a score then, I think, early in the second half?
And he had the assist before the goal as well. When the game stretched and he was able to use his legs, he was able to create huge havoc. And he had to, Tommy, because Kilmallock were missing so many chances. I think it was 18 wides and 2 or 3 others that dropped into the goalkeeper's hands. Kilmallock against Naas, Kilmallock can't afford to be as wasteful again this Saturday. Not
a chance. And we talk about it on the other side, the experience that Eamon Callaghan brought to the table for Naas, when Naas probably struggled to get going for much of that game against Kilmallock. And Callaghan in a lot of ways had a quiet enough game until it got to close enough to injury time. And does he kick the last 2 points going into injury time and then the first 2 points in extra time or something like that? Callaghan's performance that day, it was clutch. It was real. It was a clutch performance. And I think you made a good point there about Paul Mannion. December 18th was the last time they played against Port Arlington. A fella like that who's at the level of fitness that he's at, and he's got it in the bank over the last couple of years, the amount of All-Ireland titles he's won, the work he's done with Dublin. Rest the body for a couple of weeks. Get yourself right. Get yourself as well as you can get. I'm sure we'll be seeing Paul Mannion this weekend. He'll be on that pitch this weekend, one way or another. So how much of an influence can he have? That's the big question.
I'm also, by the way, not claiming at all that Robbie Brennan was being mischievous by putting this into the media during the week that Paul Mannion wouldn't play. But when you mentioned that he's an injury doubt, didn't say he was ruled out, just said he's a doubt because he hasn't been able to train. That has to get Naas's management thinking slightly about alternate plans and the fact that Mannion mightn't start.
Yeah, but I'm sure most, we're talking about a management team here that have been thrown into it in the middle of a season. I'm sure, and they're probably rolling with all the punches, and they're dealing with all these different challenges that come up with them in Naas. But most management teams at any level, whether it's intermediate, junior, senior, inter-county club, you're going to have a couple of different plans for a couple of different players if you're this far on, because you're not going to fluke your way to it this far. You're not going to get there without having a couple of plans in place. So I'm sure they'll have a plan A. Mannion starts, our number 6 is taking him, or our number 5 is taking him. If he doesn't start, we move things around this way and we do this. Maybe they're setting up their forwards in a different way if Mannion doesn't start, and they attack the game in a different way. Or maybe they have a plan for if Mannion comes off the bench. So, yeah, I think Robbie, like whatever about Robbie Brendan was probably asked the question and probably just rolled with it. So whatever about how doubtful Paul Mannion is, we're never going to know that until throw-in on Saturday evening.
5 o'clock Saturday evening game is on RT television as well, so you can watch all these games this weekend. The 2 Camogie finals we'll be talking about are also being streamed on the Camogie's YouTube page too. A couple of other club football points to pick up with you before we bring in Daragh Ó Conchúir to talk about the Camogie. 2 decisions that were made. Firstly, it seems the Connacht Council are going to take a very strong line on Mountbellew Moylock. There's been plenty of speculation about the length of the suspensions, but potentially the maximum punishment of 2 years could come in for some of the Mountbellew Moylock players. You were at that game, and I know you spoke very strongly a couple of weeks ago about it. Probably no great surprise that Connacht Council have felt that they have to hand out the strongest penalties that they possibly could.
Yeah, it's no surprise at all, and I think it's been dealt with in a lot of cases in the right way. If there was hands put on the referee, it needed to be dealt with in the strongest possible manner. We also had the WhatsApps that did the round. I think the referee's report was leaked on WhatsApp and it did the rounds and it ended up in the papers the next day, and that's kind of how the story got out. In that same chain of WhatsApp messages, the proposed suspensions were thrown out. I'm not going to say what they are here because they haven't been published yet, so I don't know if the Connacht Council have made them clear or if they're waiting for them to be appealed. There's word that some of the players are quite unhappy that they may be suspended because they feel like they didn't do anything. So we'll wait and see what happens. I'm sure it'd be probably nice to hear from Val Daly, the Mountbellew manager, over the next couple of weeks whenever this does settle down, and we'll see what happens in that regard. But yeah, good to see swift action from the Connacht Council. It needs to be dealt with like that. Like, you read Jerome Henry's report and you read the pieces in the paper, and the level of abuse that was levelled at him, I know written down in paper, it never looks good, but it just sounded horrendous. I'm sure we've all been guilty of losing our heads at sporting events or games at different times, but it just can't be excused, the manner in which it happened, and the fact that there was physical altercations as well, which was clear on the day. It just we've spoken about it already. Like, it's being dealt with. So we'll wait and see what happens with the Connacht Council when those suspensions are released, and whether or not Mountbellew Moylock appeal any of those suspensions. It is worth noting as well that it's in one of John Fallon's articles that the Connacht Council felt that the club brought Connacht GA into disrepute.
Yeah, particularly when so many people were watching online or may well have watched back the video on Facebook afterwards when they heard about the incident too. It's definitely, I can understand why Connacht Council will be taking a strong line on it. The other thing was, we got the fixtures yesterday pretty much mapped out for the rest of the month, and there was some discussion. Well, the hurling fixtures, I first give you, are on the 23rd of January, the Sunday, and they're going to have 2 semi-finals, understandably, in the hurling. So on the one hand, you're going to have the Munster champions, either Kilmallock or Ballygunner, going to Parnell Park to play Slough-Neil at 1:30 that day. Semple Stadium 3:30 for the reigning champions, Ballyhill Shamrocks, up against St Thomas of Galway. That one particularly is going to be a cracker to look forward to over the next couple of weeks. And Semple Stadium is also going to be the venue on the previous Sunday, the 16th, for the Munster Club Football Final, which would be a long time coming around. But there was a lot of back and forth about this one, Tommy. So we've got Finbars of Cork up against Austin Stacks of Kerry. Stacks were keen to flip a coin and say, right, we're either playing Páirc Uí Chaoimh or we're playing Tralee. And I think, understandably, Finbars were like, well, there's more of an advantage for you guys playing in Tralee than there is for us to play in Páirc Uí Chaoimh, and we would prefer a neutral venue. If it was Meath Hill at some point in a provincial final, Tommy, and the players were approached to talk about it, would you flip a coin to give away potentially home advantage, or would you want a final to be at a neutral venue?
We like playing in Navan and Meath Hill. We like playing in Park Talton. I've always said that we love playing there. So not that it always goes our way, but it's always great to play in that county ground. I think what you're saying there about Finbars makes a bit of sense. Páirc Uí Chaoimh isn't their home ground. They're going up against Stacks, who will be playing in Tralee in their home ground. And when I saw Kieran Donaghy tweeting about it, I think he had a couple of emojis and a shrug saying, don't get why they won't swap or they won't flip a coin for it. I was kind of thinking, Kieran's probably right. Why won't they? Like, why are they dragging fans from 2 different counties over to Semple? But when you say it like that, Will, it makes a lot of sense. I hadn't thought about it that way. So I think, look, it's probably fair that it's in Semple and it's in a neutral stadium, and nobody is going to care. Like, once it's settled and once it's sorted, nobody is going to care where that game is being played. They're going to be focusing on getting ready for their individual battles, their collective plans, and they're going to be looking at winning a Munster title. So all the shenanigans probably came about because there wasn't a decision made quick enough.
Yeah, and I think they had to wait until the 4th of January for a meeting to take place before that decision could be made on the fixture. So that's kind of what slowed things down firstly. But I know if it was my club, Tommy, there is no way I would be flipping a coin and potentially giving home advantage away to another team. I think all finals should be at neutral venues, as much as sometimes it can make sense of its neighbouring counties. But in this case, Finbars wanted a neutral venue, and that's what they've got, Semple Stadium. We're going to look forward now to the AIB All-Ireland Camogie finals, because the 2020 season comes to an end this weekend. We've got the intermediate decider, which is Galtier of Waterford up against St. Rhinus of Offaly, and then the junior final is Clonmorris of Kerry, who are going to play Raharney of Westmeath. And as it works out, these two games are repeats of the 2019-2020 season finals, which took place nearly 2 years ago. Won by Clonmorris in December of 2019 in their game against Raharney, and Galtier beat St. Rhinus with a very, very late goal from Una Jackman at Croke Park in the intermediate decider. So the upshot of that is, there's a few kind of quirky things coming out of these games, Tommy, before we bring in Daragh to have a chat about them. If Galtier and Clonmorris win this weekend, a draw will be required for next week's Munster Camogie Championships, because they will both go up a grade because they'll have retained their titles. So it's a very strange scenario that no matter what happens, these teams are going to be back out in provincial next week.
It's incredible. I've been trying to get my head around it all morning, Will. And I'm hoping Daragh can clear up a few little questions that I have. There's so many different clauses that if one team wins, they might go to senior, they might stay in intermediate. It's brilliant. It's just nuts. The next couple of weeks in Camogie, it's going to be brilliant. I'd say the other clubs that have qualified and aren't playing at the minute are probably looking at the clubs that are now in the 2020 finals, saying, are probably a little bit annoyed that they're having to wait so long to find out who they're going to be playing next. So we'll wait and see what way those draws go. But a couple of brilliant stories that are floating around from these games too. Like Galtier are pulling from the same parish as Ballygunner. They get half their team from Passage, half their team from Ballygunner. So there's going to be a lot of excitement down in East Waterford this weekend for that game too.
Yeah, well, it could be a huge weekend because they play Saturday at Semple Stadium, Galtier against St. Rhinus. That's at 1:30 on Saturday, and it's Temple is the venue for Clonmorris against Raharney. That's Sunday afternoon from 2:00. Delighted to say that we've got Daragh Ó Conchúir with us as well to have a look forward to these games. But before we bring Daragh in, let's get the thoughts of some of the captains ahead of these finals. We'll start with Galtier against St. Rhinus, third year in a row that these teams are meeting. Here's what Mairead Daly, the St. Rhinus captain, had to say ahead of the game on Saturday lunchtime.
We never really knew that winning feeling until 5 years ago, and we're just kind of lucky that we've won the last 5 in a row then, county titles, and then we've 3 Leinsters. So it is huge to build on that. I suppose that's kind of where we were on to drive it on another bit after losing the All-Ireland semi to Galtier 3 years ago, and then 2 years ago losing in the All-Ireland final. It's not a nice place to be, and they're kind of the feelings you want to kind of push down as well, but bring to the fore to kind of drive you on. So yeah, we know what feeling we want at the end of Saturday, and it'll be a case of if we get there or not.
The fact that it is Galtier and the fact that you do have history, does that make any difference to the approach to the game, or do you think it'll make any difference to the game itself?
No, not at all. We don't really go back. Only I suppose the last minute goal we talk about a lot, just to kind of put the fire in the belly again. That's obviously how they bet us the last time. But no, it's very much we're a different setup now, different style of play, different players. So it's a completely different match for us, completely different mindset. So it's like a fresh game, I suppose.
That's Mairead Daly there, who missed out on the final back in March of 2020 at Croke Park when Galtier got that late goal to win against St. Rhinus. She was Mayor Ishka on the day because of a knee ligament injury which caused her to miss all that year. She got injured when she was with the Offaly Camogie panel, an All-Ireland winner at Offaly Ladies Football back in 2013 as well. We can hear from the Galtier camp as well. Here's Ciara Jackman, who spoke about just the nature of the fact that these teams are meeting in the All-Ireland Championship for the 3rd year in a row.
This is our 3rd time in 3 seasons coming up against St. Rhinus, and look, I think any of the matches there's probably not been more than a puck of a ball or two between us. Look, Rhinus, they're such a balanced team from 1 to 15, and any of the players on the bench that could come on, they're a dangerous team. When they carry the ball, when they have the ball, they attack in waves. So we're just going to have to be aware of that, adapt on the day, and just see what we can do. See if we can counteract that.
Is there a kind of a derby feeling about this because you have met in the last couple of years and you've met, in 2 big games, and they might feel they owe you one, and you want to prove, I suppose, that that last second injury time goal against them in the All-Ireland final wasn't a fluke? Is there kind of a different feeling to this than there would be to I won't say a normal game because I'm not sure there's such a thing, but is this game, is this a rivalry?
Look, I suppose looking back at the final, the 2020, look, it was a fantastic way for us to win it, but it was a heartbreaking way for Rhinos to lose it just at the last second. So look, they have to right their wrongs, I suppose, as well. They have an All-Ireland title they want to get back to. We've just gotten over the line the last 2 matches against them, so we're not expecting anything less. We're expecting a very, very tight affair.
Daragh, I think it has to be considered a rivalry now at this stage, doesn't it? Because the fact that they've met 3 years in a row, they had a close semi-final back in the 18-19 season. What happened at Croke Park with Galtier's very late Jackman goal to win that final, and now here they are meeting in a final again in back-to-back years, albeit nearly 2 years between the fixtures. There is a little bit of a rivalry here between Galtier and Rhinos, isn't there?
There has to be. I mean, if you look well, I guess that's the definition of a rivalry, isn't it? Animosity. They won't talk about animosity, but when you get to know players and remember a belt you got the last day and things like that, it all adds to it. And it's quite similar. It's funny, really, between the intermediate and junior finals, because the same applies between Clonmorris and Raharney in terms of a repeat final and having met in semi-finals before that. So it probably adds to the occasion, and really there isn't much between them, as we saw when they met, I was going to say last year in 2019. It's and there have been some changes in both squads in the meantime, as you've alluded to, and they both won their semi-finals easily. I really think it could be a cracker if the weather behaves.
Yeah, like 2 high-scoring performances. I think it was 4-14 the Galtier scored in their semi-final, and Rhinos scored 3 goals and 14 in theirs, winning very, very comfortably in games they both won pretty much at half-time. It's fairly clear that these are the 2 best clubs at intermediate level in the country currently.
Yeah, and I suppose they're from senior counties, and so maybe you'd be expecting that with Waterford in particular on the upgrade maybe in the last few years, but Offaly are getting their house in order as well too. And you look through the teams, Will, and you see a really good balance. You have, I suppose, Galtier were generally quite young, when they came through, and that inexperience may be told against them the first year. They lost, and then their speed really flourished in Croke Park, probably against St. Rhinos in the last final. But they're down the likes of Annie Fitzgerald, who was a key player 2 years ago, and she's been away in Erasmus in the past crazy COVID times. And St. Rhinos have just such experience, but it's hard to imagine you've someone like Siobhan Flannery in your team, for argument's sake, that Rhinos have, and she's not your go-to person in terms of scores, which is fantastic for Siobhan, but that's been the way she was for many years for Offaly. But they have Kate Kenny, who can do it from freeze and from play. You have the Egan sisters, you have Mairead Daly, Linda Sullivan, who seems to have been around forever. They have real depth through, whereas Galtier will probably feel like they're playing better, they're entitled to improve as they get older with that youthful profile. Aoife Fitzgerald has stepped up to the plate, probably vacated by her cousin in terms of the freeze. You have a lot of forward depth with Anne Corcoran there as well, and Mairead Heffernan, the captain, it looks like she's going to be fit, which would have been crucial in terms of they're going to need her when it comes to trying to neutralise some of Rhino's attacking threat. There's a lot to talk about, really. Yeah,
I know you're going to be profiling Kay Kenny for the newspapers this weekend. She could have a very unique medal collection if she was to come through and win, because she's already an All-Ireland intermediate ladies football champion with another club in Naomh Ciaran where she plays her ladies football, and similarly Roisin Egan, who'll be playing at midfield for St. Rhinos, could do the same. Kay Kenny has probably been viewed in Offaly for a long time as an incredible dual player, and at some point maybe she's going to have to pick between them, but she's playing camogie and ladies football in DCU currently and seems to be able to balance everything. That would be one hell of a medal collection if she had an All-Ireland in both codes. At 20 years of age too, Will. It's quite remarkable. She was Offaly Player of the Year in camogie and ladies football as a 16-year-old at the end of 2018. It is quite amazing what she has done already.
there's pressure, I guess, that you must deal with in that type of scenario. But she seems to have a good attitude in terms of looking at the benefits of it and going from game to game, as we saw with Lockmore Castleiney. There are huge benefits as long as the management teams cooperate, and that's what she has found to date. As you say, if she could add a club, a Camogie All-Ireland to a club, Camogie football, it would be phenomenal. Again, isn't it fantastic the tradition Offaly has? When you're talking about such a small pick and probably reducing all the time in terms of rural depopulation, for Offaly to be boxing at this level and to have someone, a woman on the brink of joining the elite in this regard, it's credit to Kate, but it's credit to Gaelic Games people in Offaly too.
Clonmorris against Raherney is also a repeat of the final, as you said, from December of 2019, where Clonmorris came out on top against Raherney. Both the panels have changed a little bit since, and I was reading about Clonmorris's position with the amount of players that they have available because of some regrading. They had one player away with COVID, which is why they played the semi-final with 14 players. Their winning captain from 2019 is 8.5 months pregnant. She's still going to stick a jersey on this weekend so that they can have 17 players. That's quite remarkable that they're having to scrape by with just about a team with two of the most important games that they played in recent years.
Well, it's nuts, isn't it? I mean, and what they have achieved, we all know, again, the hurling diehards in Kerry, just phenomenal, and in and around Kilmallock and Fanoog and these places, it's hurling number one. And Camogie has just grown exponentially in Kerry in the last decade. The county team, now Division 2 from Division 4, have had really good, strong results, have won All-Irelands, and the club team have, they obviously are fed by the one club team, Clonmorris. There are now two junior clubs and hopefully a few underage clubs, and hopefully that'll grow it. But they had real issues this year. Starting, they lost 2 players that weren't registered or were deemed ineligible because they were travelling and pregnant 2 years ago when this championship started. And then they got a few COVID issues the night before the semi-final. So you mentioned Liz Houlihan, who I think is due next month. Liz had her jersey on, and if this was GA rules and she was willing, you can start with 14, but you have to have 15 starting the second half. Fortunately, Camogie rules don't require that. But Liz would have stepped over the white line, put a helmet on at 8.5 months, and I presume it's safe remove, stood in a corner somewhere. But that's what the captain 2 years ago was willing to do. And in truth, throughout the game, bar maybe a 10 or 15 minute period, despite being at that numerical disadvantage, they dominated and held the upper hand. That league did challenge maybe a bit after half-time, but Clonmorris just have this. They've been against the odds all their lives in Camogie terms, and but this was another level. But listen, Clonmorris have a player, and they have really good strength and depth in terms of players who have been there now a long time, and they're a really hardened team. But in Patrice Diggin, they have a player who has been doing it every time she's done it, competed at elite levels. We can compare with Ashbourne Cup, which is Camogie's equivalent of the Sigerson and the third level Division 1 games, and she has been player of the matches and finals, and she's won a couple of Ashbourne Cups, have been on all-star teams. She is phenomenal. So at this level, she really stands out, and she did again in the semi-final, providing a lot of leadership. Scores, obviously, but from play and from frees. And, the likes of Niamh Lean and that, they've all been there. But Raherney, again, have a cause, sort of like St. Ryan's. They have a cause. I mean, they were a puck of the ball away. They were a point up going into injury time in the drawn game 2 years ago, and Jessica Fitzell blocks a clearance, collects it and splits the post from 50 yards, and that brings it to a replay, which Clonmorris wins. So, Raherney will feel, even though again there has been some turnover. They will feel that they have the players and the capability of taking the next step. These are two games that really should go down to the wire, just judging on the form of the clashes between them before.
Yeah, and Raharney with 7 Westmeath titles in a row. Remarkable experience even for some of those younger players. Like they might not have Pamela Greville anymore, but they still have Fiona Levy, they still have the Dohertys, they still have the Cores coming through. It's an incredible group. Tommy, you were coming in there?
Yeah, lads, just reading up on the Clonmara story today. Like, you're right, like nuts, Darragh. It's absolutely incredible. But Patrice Diggin was speaking to Paul Keane in the Examiner, and just had this brilliant quote that Liz is due in less than a month. We were in dire straits that day at the semi-final. The same girl would have walked onto the field for sure. And they're saying that one of the selectors for Clonmara's are going to have to stand beside her, just make sure that she doesn't go over the line this weekend to play in the All-Ireland final. So it's a remarkable story. Like it's hard to get your head around it, isn't it? Like a club side having to struggle for players at that time of the year. It is just unbelievable.
It is amazing, and but that's the type of fairy tale. People talk about the club championship in sort of twee terms because in the past we've had a couple of months to maybe delve into it, and while some deem it disastrous that we're going to have to deal with the club game for longer in the future, I think it's great. These stories are at the bread and butter of what the games are about, and the spirit, and this is just something they've built up over a long time. It is disappointing for them that the Kilmallock hurling team are playing at the same time in Munster Championship. There are families involved in both here, and obviously partners and friends and things like that as well. That's a pity because you've got a very small hurling following that's going to be split, and you would love them to be at an All-Ireland final for a Camogie team of this nature. A lot of them aren't going to be, unfortunately, but that's just another one of those odds that's against them, and they will go, right, bring it on.
Well, they certainly will. Darragh, enjoy both the games this weekend. Thanks a million for joining us on the Club Championship Show. Tommy, just before I let you go, what becomes of the football pod now, given that Andy Moran is going to be having FBD League?
Now, well, I'm not sure if you're listening to last night's Off the Ball, but Joe Malloy tried to drag it out of me as well. There will be announcements about the football pod in the coming weeks, but I will not be drawn on them any further at this moment in time. Andy Moran and the football pod can never be disassociated from each other. Andy was there from day one, and who's to say that Andy isn't going to be there anymore? So that's all I'm saying.
But there's a hint.
No, it's not really a hint. Andy Moran is the Leitrim boss, so Leitrim is number one this year. But maybe he'll be involved in a consultation basis. Look at Ralph Rangnick's role in United, that he wants to stay on in a consultation role. So are you claiming now
that Andy has been able to pick his successor?
No, I'm not saying that. I'm not even saying that Andy Moran is going to be my secret ghost editor in the background. I'm not saying that either. But you'd look at there'll be a bit of word on the football pod pretty soon, and there's exciting news coming on the football pod. I just don't want to say anything too soon.
Good stuff. It's an exciting period. Tommy has picked 2 draws in the football finals this weekend.
I just checked it out, 81-1. I'm not saying to do it, but it's like these games, and the reason we're saying they're going to be draws, and Darragh's talking about the Camogie games being very close as well. They're going to be so competitive this weekend, all of these games, and that Crokes game, the Crokes and Ace game, the Knockmore Pierce's game. Watch them. They're on TV. They're going to be so tight. They're going to be so close, and they're going to be proper battles. So,
do you know one of the good things as well, Tommy, about the way that the spread has gone around the year? We talked about a few weeks ago. It's difficult for teams to maybe bridge that gap, and we're chatting to Chrissy McCaig just before Christmas, and it was a long wait till the 23rd of January to play. But the good news for those of us who are fans of the games, we can now see all the provincial finals, see all the All-Ireland semi-finals. It's nicely spread across the month of January and into early February, which is like great news, because sometimes these games overlap, and even with the inter-county season coming back, there's still a nice little spotlight on these matches over the next few weeks.
100%. It's nearly like a mini festival of finals over the next little while. And like, it's a pity that, Darragh mentioned there, the likes of Kilmallock and Clonmara, same parish, they're probably split at the weekend. You look at Galtier and Ballygunner, but maybe those stories are unavoidable when this country is so small and you've got the crisscrossing of different parishes and different families, and maybe it's impossible when you've got 3 or 4 different sports being organised too. So that's going to happen, but it is brilliant. You're right, they're all kind of happening around the same time. I think it's brilliant that we've got a couple of finals now to look forward to over the next couple of weeks, because they're going to be so competitive.
Cracking
That's
weekend.
what we want.
Just a reminder of what's coming up this weekend. They're all going to be extremely competitive. We've got the Connacht football final, we've got the Leinster football final, Munster Hurling final, and those two 2020 deciders at intermediate and junior. We'll be looking back and wrapping on all of those next week. We'll be back next Wednesday for the next edition of the Club Championship Show with AIB.
The Club Championship Show on OTB Sports in partnership with AIB, proud sponsors of the Football, Hurling and Camogie All-Ireland Club Championships. #the toughest.